Welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. I'm Victoria Gallagher, your host. Have you been attempting to use law of attraction or hypnosis to attract financial abundance, a soulmate, or career success? Would you like to be happy, motivated, and successful? Have better health, enjoy more fulfilling relationships, overcome struggle, and gain mastery over your life? Then join me on this amazing self-help podcast where you'll unleash the power of your mind. I'll be sharing 20 years of wisdom and techniques of hypnotherapy, law of attraction, visualization, meditation, personal growth, positive affirmations, and other effective methods to help you tap into the great power which resides in your mind and become the best version of yourself. Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You're listening to episode number 83. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction coach, #1 best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps. So be sure to stop by HipTalk.com and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course. And for our listeners who found us through Power of Your Mind podcast, you can get 35% off your first order of hypnosis downloads when you apply the code podcast to your shopping cart. Also, be sure to download our latest HypnoCloud app from the iTunes store. So today I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Richard K. Nongard. Dr. Richard K. Nongard is the author of The 7 Most Effective Methods of Self-Hypnosis, How to Create Rapid Change in Your Health, Wealth, and Habits, and many other. I just counted. I was on Amazon just now and I counted. I think you're up to 20 books now. He is a leadership keynote speaker and a trainer who helps businesses engage culture, build community, and discover affirmative identity. He has real-world executive and entrepreneurial experience in both education and healthcare. As a licensed psychotherapist, he has applied his problem-solving and communication skills to business psychology and is an expert in sales psychology, motivational psychology, and peak performance coaching. So today, Richard is going to be sharing with us some of his insights about the 7 most effective methods of self-hypnosis. There is no simpler way to make significant changes in your life than by learning self-hypnosis. Almost every leading book on personal development, from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich to Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, stress the value of self-hypnosis. Richard's book reveals the most effective methods behind that advice and tells you exactly how you can maximize your success easily by mastering self-hypnosis and autosuggestion in one of 7 different ways. So welcome to the show, Richard.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Good to have you.
That was a lot to say in the introduction there.
Well, there's a lot to you, and that probably only scratches the surface of the things that you're known for in this industry. I mean, my goodness. I mean, didn't mention your school. I didn't mention, the fact that you have a private practice in, Nevada. I mean, all the things. We're all like, when does this man sleep?
Well, fortunately, I'm pretty good at self-hypnosis. So when I need a break, I can just relax, access the creative part of the mind, the intuitive part of the mind, recharge, and get on with more tasks of the day.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, you're, traveling all over the world, delivering all these presentations and workshops and keynote speeches, and, you're everywhere. I am almost thinking maybe you've got a clone.
Sometimes people think that, but I wasn't always able to get a lot done. I used to procrastinate a lot. I used to be frustrated by my own inadequacies. I felt like I didn't have direction. And the principles that I'm passionate about sharing are actually things that I've applied in my own life. I've discovered it's a lot easier for me to help people when I actually share with them, not only what the research says. I am an academic, so I do synthesize and study the research, but I also try to share the things that I actually use in my own life, the things that have helped me to be more effective, the things that have helped me to get more done, and to actually manifest the things that that are most important in life to me.
Yeah, it's so true. And you walk the talk, and I believe that to be a valid hypnotherapist, you really do need to come from your own personal experiences and have, healed yourself. Not, nobody's perfect. We're all working on ourselves. We're all in a process of personal development, I would say, at any one time where, there's challenges that we're dealing with, but you do practice what you preach. And so it's really important. But, getting back to some of these books, I mean, just recently, and I don't even know in what order these have recently come out, but, you've got this one here that we're going to be diving into a little bit today, the 7 most effective methods of self-hypnosis, how to create rapid change in your health, wealth, and habits. But you also recently came out with Real Hope, how hope drives positive actions that lead. I mean, you're building my library here with all of these these books. And then not too long ago, you came out with this Viral Leadership, seize the power of now to create lasting transformation in business. And I mean, just in the last year, I don't know, how many books have you done in the last year?
There are 4 books that I've done in the last 12 months. And again, sometimes people ask me, how long does it take to write a book? Well, the 7 most effective methods of self-hypnosis, since I teach that so often, was easy for me to write. I sat down and put it together. It's an airplane book. You can read it in under 2 hours. I wrote it probably in about a week. That's that was a lot of typing, but I already knew it. The book, The Step Spouse, How to Stay Sane When Their Ex is Driving You Crazy, is a book I actually started working on 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I finally finished it. It happened to be during this year, so it counts as this year's book. So all the different books, the book I wrote titled Turnaround Trauma was actually a book that came from my TED Talk that I did earlier this year. And I did a TED Talk on the value of mindfulness and a brief demonstration of mindfulness. Well, TED Talks are limited to 20 minutes, and I was specifically talking about how do we turn around trauma? If we come from a life where there have been adverse childhood experiences and we map that into our adult world, how do we transcend it? How do we overcome it? Well, there was more than 20 minutes of information, so I wrote a short book that, again, shares the strategies, the science behind how to transcend adverse childhood experiences and live fully in the present.
Yeah, it makes so much sense what you say too about you wrote the book basically in a week, but you've got, it's 20 years of experience. And I could relate to that because a lot of times when people ask me, it's like, how long did it take you to write this book? Practical Law of Autogenic. Like, well, for me, it was my first real book. I have a lot of, scrap books in the works right now that I've been kind of picking away at for the last, 20 years myself. But yeah, when this is a practice, when this is something you live, breathe, and do every day, it's like when you finally do just sit down and put pen to paper, or fingers to keyboard, the book just kind of writes itself.
Well, I'm really excited about the 7 most effective strategies for self-hypnosis, in that when people learn these simple ideas, it changes their lives. If they're interested in manifesting and attracting abundance, self-hypnosis is a strategy. Mm-hmm. If they're interested in changing behaviors that have been self-defeating or things they've struggled with, self-hypnosis is a solution. If they simply want to, in a stressful world, find a little bit of serenity and relaxation, self-hypnosis is the strategy. And so the great thing about the 7 most effective methods of self-hypnosis is they can be applied by people in so many different situations. People who have come from very difficult scenarios and situations in life and are trying to overcome those things, or people who are already high achievers who are looking to rise to the next level. And so self-hypnosis is a proven strategy for making significant changes and manifesting abundance and living our best life.
Absolutely. I mean, my first entry into personal growth was through a book that, it was called Total Self-Confidence. But in that book, he taught self-hypnosis. And that was my very, very first exposure. And it was through the process of self-hypnosis that I was able to achieve so many things: losing weight, overcoming fear of needles, just you name it, quitting smoking. I mean, just so many things. So let's kind of dive into a little bit about what this book, really, really goes into detail on. And I know, there's going to be these 7 techniques. Maybe people are going to want to read the book to actually get an understanding of what those techniques do, how to learn them, how to apply them. But so I was reading through your book last night, and in chapter 1, you mentioned that self-hypnosis is so simple that a child can do it. So is that just an expression, or can a child really hypnotize themselves?
No, I'm kind of well known for delving into the research behind hypnosis. Hypnosis isn't something that we hope works. There are over 12,000 peer-reviewed journal articles that show us that hypnosis is a first-line intervention, that it's an effective tool for helping people make change. One of those studies has always fascinated me. It was a study done with children who had migraine headaches. And one group was treated with medication, and one group was taught the principles of self-hypnosis. And at the end of the study, it was amazing. If I remember correctly, I think they had a 61%, the self-hypnosis group had a 61% greater reduction in either the intensity and the frequency of migraine headaches than the group who only took the medication. Actually, the group that took the medication.
61%.
Yeah, the self-hypnosis group didn't take any medication. They were only taught self-hypnosis. What's fascinating about this is that this was not a group of adolescents. This was not children who were 17 and 18 years old. These weren't seniors in high school. This was a group of 6 to 12-year-olders. Now, these weren't 6 to 12-year-olders who were hypnotized by the all-powerful stage hypnotist. These were literally kids who were taught the principles of self-hypnosis by an ancillary allied medical professional. The simple strategies of things ranging from progressive muscle relaxation to visualization and other basic techniques in self-hypnosis. And they had remarkable results, which tells us really 2 things. It tells us, 1, hypnosis is an effective intervention. Mm-hmm. And 2, it is so simple that actually even a kid can do it.
Yes. And it's interesting too, because, you and I have bantered about this a little bit, about various different techniques. And, there's a lot of hypnotists out there that really like to, they want to impress with their complex technique. And really, the more simple you can make the technique, the easier it is for the average person to remember.
Absolutely. Progressive muscle relaxation has always been one of my favorite self-hypnosis strategies. Simply paying attention to each of the important muscle groups in our body and noticing the difference between tension and relaxation. When we practice that in a session, what happens is we map that over into our real world, and we end up in traffic or a red light or a stressful situation or a boss. And intuitively, we notice the difference between tension and relaxation, and we can choose the healthier alternative, which is a state of serenity. That's actually the best way to handle any stress. And there's been a ton of research on the profound benefits behind progressive muscle relaxation. But I go to hypnosis conventions and people think it's too simple or it's boring or it's not flashy enough. Well, my job is not to impress hypnotists at a hypnosis convention. My job is actually to help the clients who come to my office, the people who seek out help from me. And so I teach them what the research shows is actually a profound way of changing both your physical and your emotional and your cognitive experiences. And that is with progressive muscle relaxation is one of, I think, the foundational strategies in self-hypnosis.
Absolutely. Well, it's the first thing you're taught usually in a hypnosis school is that, and because it's really a no-fail method to get somebody into trance. I mean, you just based on the biology of, the tensing and the relaxation, you are going to, you're going to go into a profound state of relaxation, which allows your mind to open up and receive suggestions.
And most of the people who I know are having difficulty simply don't know how to lighten up. They don't know how to let go. They don't know how to relax both physically and mentally. And progressive muscle relaxation doesn't just help us to self-soothe and put us to sleep at night if we have insomnia. It also helps us to have clarity of mind, to be able to make the choices that are most important to us without a cluttered state, without a tense mind. So just like I can tense and relax the fist, right, or the muscles of my arm, or the muscles in my eyes and face, I can actually tense and relax, if you will, my mind muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yes.
and that provides a real strategy that people don't have. We, like a fish swims in water, we're swimming in thoughts. And to be able to make the water calm is really important.
I love that. That's a great analogy. So there's been you talk about a lot of, and we were talking about some famous people yesterday that we've met. And, a lot of them use these practices that we talk about. So what do you think about famous people who have been using self-hypnosis to advance their careers? Like what are your thoughts about that? If you find value in this personal growth related material, I strongly recommend that you sign up for your $1 trial to my Personal Growth Club. Just head on over to personalgrowthclub.com and get a whole month of premium Personal Growth Club video training materials, meditations. You also get 6 free hypnosis sessions that are valued at over $174, all for this trial of just $1. Even if you cancel, you can keep the 6 hypnosis sessions. That's my gift to you, and that's how confident I am that you are going to love Personal Growth Club. Go to personalgrowthclub.com and start your $1 1-month trial today.
Well, I think a lot of people, not just famous people, but other people advance their careers. I do a lot of executive coaching. I work with CEOs or CFOs or COOs, and I help them to take, again, control over the tasks that are in front of them. Usually from an operational perspective, they have those skills. Anything that's holding them back is almost always from an emotional perspective, a lack of confidence or quick to communicate in a way that might not be the most effective way. Famous people have the same types of issues. So these skills work whether you're, Ellen DeGeneres, who used hypnosis to quit smoking, or whether you're, Kevin Costner, who overcame a fear of boats and water to make his movie Waterworld, or anyone else who's used hypnosis as a strategy, and self-hypnosis in particular.
Who was it? Matt Damon, I think he used
Matt Damon used hypnosis to quit smoking. I mean, lots of famous people have used hypnosis. Albert Einstein used hypnosis as a way of reaching a higher plane of thinking and logic. Mm-hmm. It was a strategy that he used, self-hypnosis. And, I find that fascinating. It's not just for quitting smoking. It's for discovering the theory of relativity.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, absolutely. And speaking of Albert Einstein, because a lot of people, and this brings me to something that can come up, and a common occurrence that can happen with going into these deeper relaxed states, is a person has a tendency maybe to fall asleep, especially when you're doing it on yourself and you don't have somebody to bring you out of trance. But one of the techniques that he used, I always remember, was that he would take a heavy thing, a rock or something heavy, and he would place it in the palm of his hand. And that would prevent him, because even he had, yep, a knife. What is that?
I don't want to drop it on my foot.
Right. You don't want to drop that. I actually had somebody during my seminar, he kept falling asleep, and I did that with him. I had him hold a water bottle in his hand, and it was cute. I mean, he was,
Right.
totally okay with it.
It becomes a great convincer in hypnosis too, because 20 minutes later, they're still holding the water bottle or the rock or whatever heavy object it was. And that hand is fatigued. And you normally wouldn't hold something for that long.
No.
So why would you? Well,
I had him have his palm facing up, and I had him place it like he wasn't gripping it. He placed it there. So he had to focus on balancing it so that it wouldn't roll off his hand.
And that focus contributes to the resource state of hypnosis. We have all these thoughts that we're swimming around in, and being able to focus on one, in this case, balance, teaches us that we can focus on anything, whether it's wealth, whether it's health, whether it's habit change, or anything else. But, a lot of people think that hypnosis makes you sleepy. Self-hypnosis, the first strategy in the book is on autosuggestion. We wander around all day long talking to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, we don't discover what we had to say to ourselves. It's just chatter. Yeah. It comes in the form of, complete thoughts and sentences. We might even speak out loud to ourselves while driving or doing some other task. But most of the time, our self-talk comes in the form of incomplete thoughts or awarenesses. They say that we have up to 50,000 independent and different thoughts each day. Well, each one of those thoughts is a hypnotic message that we're giving ourselves. And so self-hypnosis doesn't have to be close your eyes and take 20 minutes to appear like we're meditating. It can be something that I'm focused on during the day as I pay attention to the language I use with myself. And one of the things that I'm always encouraging people to do is simply to be gentle to ourselves. Mm-hmm. Our self-talk is so judgmental, and we are so hard on ourselves. And when we can learn to recognize that self-talk, which doesn't contribute to a happier life, and replace it with something more gentle and to actually be good to ourselves, we can have as profound an experiences in change as if we learn any other form of self-hypnosis.
It's so true. And people, and I'll hear people's language, and they think that it's harmless, that when they say they've made a little mistake, they forgot something or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Like, how many times have you heard somebody say that? Oh, I'm such an idiot. But imagine, when you say that, you are saying that to a very vulnerable part of yourself, and it actually slips right on by. You're programming yourself to feel like an idiot. And would you say, and I think a good rule of thumb is to ask yourself, would you say that to a 4-year-old child? You are such an idiot.
Well, sometimes our messages came to us because when we were a 4-year-old child, somebody actually did say those things to us. And
it's unfortunate.
So we take the messages that others have given us, people who were supposed to care for us, and we map that over into our adult world, and we say they were right. I never will be successful. I can't do anything right. I'm not a good person. Or we hear the messages from advertising, the hypnotic messages from advertising. These are very subtle, but advertising works. And advertising is, you're not loved if you don't have a really big diamond. You're not successful if you don't have a super fancy watch. And these advertising messages are real powerful suggestions. And so we take those into our world as well, and we buy into them. And the result is that we're often really, really hard on ourselves. But what you're talking about is really what I call the depressing triad. So this is a true story, Victoria. I just got done walking 5,009 steps, which I think is about 2.
Yay.
Okay. So right before we met, that's what I was out doing. And I live in a normal neighborhood, a normal middle-class neighborhood, I suppose. Maybe it's it's probably a little on the high end, but it's not extravagant, and it's definitely not a dumpy place. And so I was walking around my neighborhood, the perimeter of my neighborhood, and there was actually, this is 100% true. I thought to myself, am I actually seeing that? And there was a giant fat guy mooning me. Yes.
What?
The moon was showing. So I recognized.
On purpose? Like.
What I recognized was that this was the local homeless person who's often camped near my neighborhood, and he was taking a dump.
Okay.
So my first thought was, this is appalling. This is horrible. This is not dog turd people are walking in. This is actually people turd that people are walking in. And my judgmental nature kicked in. This homeless person shouldn't be allowed to be here on the sidewalk outside of the perimeter of my, luxurious neighborhood. And as I walked on, I thought to myself, there by the grace of God go I. I'm very fortunate that I've never had to worry about whether or not I had a place to live or not. But I also thought to myself, this person who I have walked by numerous times as they camp out apparently near the perimeter of my neighborhood, probably didn't choose to essentially live in a van down by the river. In fact, living in a van down by the river would actually be luxury compared to this person who I often see sleeping with cardboard boxes near the bus stop. And so how does a person end up like this? Well, I think the depressing triad kicks in. This becomes, people end up in life at their very worst, not because I've never had anybody call me up and say, Richard, I want to make a therapy appointment. I'm 42 years old. I live in a van down by the river. I'm thrice divorced. I drink Mad Dog 2020 out of a plastic bag. I keep warm with a 55-gallon drum. I just want to come in and process how I've achieved all my life goals. Never had that call.
Yeah.
Instead, people end up there because the first thing is they have experiences where they find themselves in a situation and they say, this situation is intolerable. This situation is horrible. This is the worst situation ever. So they first devalue a situation. And since they're in that situation, they then devalue themselves and they say, this situation is horrible and I'm not a good person. Or I can't do that, or I'll never amount to anything. So first they devalue the situations, the difficulties they have, then they devalue themselves. And if this situation is horrible and I'm no good, then they devalue the future. And they say, and nothing's going to work out. And if I believe that life is hopeless, I will act hopeless. We act on whatever we believe to be true. We attract, we manifest the law of attraction, that which we think. And
they've hypnotized themselves, right?
Absolutely. And so if we don't break that cycle first by recognizing that, well, this situation this is why I like EFT, right? Even though this situation is difficult, I am worthy and compassionate and can love myself. It acknowledges the reality that sometimes life is difficult, but it counters the devaluing of the situation by accepting that I have the ability to have autonomy and to move on from here. But this cycle has to be broken. And in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, the whole 4th chapter was devoted to autosuggestion.
Yes, it was. This is one of my favorite chapters of the book.
And how do you change that self-talk? How do you think and grow rich? You think and grow rich rather than, how do you moon Richard as you live in your homeless encampment on the perimeter of a luxury neighborhood? You do it by changing your self-talk.
Yes.
And I know that sounds like a simplistic solution to deep societal problems, but imagine if we all valued ourselves, recognized the temporary nature of the situations we're in, and viewed the future through a lens of hope rather than a lens of despair. The entire world would be a different place.
Absolutely. And that brings me into chapter 3 of your book, where you actually do talk a little bit about de-hypnotizing ourselves, because we have, and nobody teaches us this language in school. They don't teach us any of this. No, most people don't understand that we are constantly living in a state of hypnosis and constantly receiving negative suggestions, constantly, those 50,000 thoughts or 70,000 thoughts, whatever it is that we think on a given day are the same thoughts that we thought yesterday and the day before and the day before. And probably about 80% of them are not positive thoughts. So how do, what is this dehypnotizing that we need to go through?
It's changing our self-talk. It's being gentle to ourselves. It's learning how to stop hypnotizing ourselves by ruminating about the past.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people who live with regret, what they're doing is they're literally visualizing their experiences of the past and mapping them into the present.
Mm-hmm.
I also meet people who are creating a timeline, we call it timeline therapy,
mm-hmm.
and they're future pacing themselves into their anxieties with all of the things they worry about. And so de-hypnosis, one of the strategies is the power of now, mindfulness, how to live fully in the present, because the great words of Master Oogway are actually true. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. All we have is the present, and that's why it's a gift. And the great Master Oogway, of course, is the turtle from Kung Fu Panda. And if I stay in the present, the ruminations of the past and the fears of the future are not here. And so what I'm left with is my own ability to create connection and new experiences and to really be safe and okay in the present moment. De-hypnosis is absolutely essential. So many people say, well, how do I learn self-hypnosis? You've already been self-hypnotizing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question is, how do I de-hypnotize myself from the negative messages that others have given me and that I've given myself?
And we do that by staying present and being aware of the talk that is happening. All we have to do is listen.
Changing our self-talk, we have to recognize the misbeliefs. The problem with misbeliefs or cognitive errors or stinking thinking is that we don't know what our misbeliefs are. If we did, they wouldn't be misbeliefs, okay? So we have to find strategies to de-hypnotize yourself first to recognize these cognitive errors. There are a lot of different ways to go about doing that. We spend the rest of the show talking about it. But first we have to figure out how to recognize our misbeliefs. And then we remove them. There's only one way to remove them, and that is to replace them with the truth. And
yes.
So, the thing about Stuart Smalley, character from Saturday Night Live.
Yes, I'm good enough.
Yes, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. That was a parody or a mockery of the affirmation in 12-step and self-help programs that were so popular in the 1980s. I loved Stuart Smalley's affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the greatest affirmations ever developed.
It really actually is.
I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. It's simple, but it's really important. And the reality is, when we learn how to be gentle to ourselves and start, those weren't extravagant promises that Stuart Smalley made.
No.
And I think that we can all buy into it if we tell ourselves the truth. And that's probably the easiest strategy for de-hypnosis.
Yes. And that is the truth. That is the truth for anyone out there listening to this program, that you are good enough and smart enough, and people do like you, and people like you, whether you have mistakes, you have bad thinking, whatever, but you can break that trance that you've been in and giving yourself the negative suggestions by just being aware, being focused, and giving yourself new suggestions. So in your book, you cover 7 most effective methods of self-hypnosis. Do you have personally a favorite out of those 7 that you tend to go with more often than not? Hello, this is Victoria Gallagher. I hope you're enjoying listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. As a way of thanking you for listening, I'd like to offer you a one-time discount of 35% off your first order at hiptalk.com. Just go to hiptalk.com and enter the code PODCAST in the discount code area in your cart, and you'll receive 35% off your first order. Thank you so much for listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast.
I don't know. It's kind of like asking to pick the most beautiful contestant at a beauty contest. They're all, but autogenic training has always been one of my favorite strategies because, like progressive muscle relaxation, it teaches a skill. And the skill that autogenic training teaches, self-genic, generate, so self-generate. Autogenic training teaches that I can literally create experiences from within myself. I don't have to wait for somebody else or the outside world to change or do something for me to have control and for me to make change. Mm-hmm. That's a very important lesson for people, the lesson of self-efficacy or autonomy. And it does so in a very simple way by teaching people first that they can create warmth or heaviness or various sensations in the body. If I can create warmth and heaviness, why can I not create wealth? Or why can I create health? Or why can I not create cooperation? Or why can I not create anything else that I would like to create? Well, the answer is I can. Mm-hmm. I can create all of those things. And so it teaches on a very basic level how to create from within. And if we can create these simple things, then as I advance in the strategy, what else can I create? And that's pretty powerful.
Yes.
Probably one of my other favorite strategies comes from Win Winger. It's a tongue twister to say that. And that is an image streaming strategy, a strategy for viewing our thoughts, again, without judgment as they come, and asking ourselves to pay attention to the stream of those 50,000 thoughts a day that we have, and to find those solutions within the streams that we have observed. You know, one of the principles of NLP or Ericksonian hypnosis is that we have within us the resources to solve any problem.
I agree with that. I mean, what's not to agree with there?
Well, a lot of people don't agree with it. They think that we are limited, that we don't have the resources within, and we do.
Yeah.
So image streaming is a way of really tapping into those inner resources. And I think that I've never actually heard another hypnotist talk about these techniques in the context of self-hypnosis. But it's a great skill for self-hypnosis.
Absolutely. And they're so simple. And the autogenic, creating those experiences is really, really effective for a person. I mean, whatever you're dealing with, but say, if you're dealing with any kind of issue that's uncomfortable for you, like a headache or whatever, I've found that you can go in and actually talk to that headache, create the experience of that headache actually getting worse. It's much easier to create the experience of something getting worse than being able to imagine it getting better. But if we can create the experience of having it get worse, then of course that's going to tell us that we can make it better.
Absolutely. If we can create pain, we can create comfort.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So in chapter 11, you discuss visualization. Now, I happen to know that for myself, visualization works really, really well. But you do have people out there who claim that they're not visual. They try to see images and they're not able to see anything. So what do you say to somebody that deals with that?
So language limits us, which is why we should learn as many languages as possible. So that way we are unlimited. Mm-hmm. And so the word visualization means different things to different people. Mm-hmm. And I think the real issue isn't that people cannot visualize, but what they've done is they've created such a narrow definition of what that experience would be like that they've limited their ability to experience it. So we have to find the language. If I have somebody who says, well, I can't visualize, well, then imagine or sense or become aware of. Okay? Mm-hmm. I have somebody who can't sense, imagine, become aware of, visualize, or experience, then I probably have somebody who isn't listening to me anyway. I probably have somebody who isn't able to grasp basic concepts. So we probably don't all visualize in the same way. That's true. But everybody has the capacity to visualize. If we expand the definition of visualization to sense, create, see, experience, access, create, invite, and all of those words. And so if I find somebody who I've discovered that when I work with clients, I don't get in battles with them. Okay. So somebody says to me, well, I can't visualize. Maybe what they're saying to me, remember I'm a therapist, is I'm not ready to make a change yet, so I don't want to suggestion. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's therapeutic resistance. But I don't like many therapists who would then confront, right? So think of Gestalt therapy and let's get confrontational. Well, have you ever been to a movie? Did you see it? Did you blink? Were you still seeing the movie even though your eyes were closed? You have the ability to visualize, right? I mean, I don't get into those debates with people. And so rather, I'll just take what they tell me at face value, which is, well, you're asking me to visualize, but I can't visualize. And then I'll simply say, what can you sense? Can you create? Can you experience? Can you become aware of? Well, maybe I can. Okay, great. Then do that. Do it the way that you can do it, and we'll all be okay. And so they don't have to visualize exactly the way I visualize. I do tend in my visualizations to instruct people with the least specificity as possible. So if I were to say to you, go ahead and close your eyes and imagine going down a heavenly flight of stairs. You're at the top stairs of these majestic white stairs with a brass banister, with a mauve carpet with brass tacks. Your staircase is going to look different than mine.
Yes.
I might simply say, imagine yourself on an escalator.
They may not like the color mauve or brass or any of that.
It is, right. It might remind you of the 1980s. So, instead, imagine yourself on an escalator, an elevator, a staircase, and see yourself, descending. Again, it's far less specificity. And the less specificity I have, the more likely my client is to create a response to it.
That's right.
But visualization, it's interesting that the book was titled The 7 Most Effective Methods of Self-Hypnosis, but I couldn't write a book without visualization. So that's actually number 8.
Yeah.
Right? and it's very important for us to visualize in whatever way that we visualize, because anything that we can think, well, nothing can become a reality until we can think it. Visualize it, right? So this microphone, I got a microphone right here. Somebody had to decide, I want to have a black microphone with a windscreen, and it's going to have some mesh on it. Somebody had to think it in order to create it.
Exactly. And how are you even able to create a reality if you can't imagine it?
Well, exactly. So imagine, Charles Haanel wrote a book titled Mental Chemistry. So the book that Charles Haanel always gets sort of recognition for is his book, The Master Key System. In fact, large parts of the movie The Secret were largely based on the ideas presented in the Master Key System. But he also wrote a book titled Mental Chemistry. And that is a powerful book.
I need to check that one out.
Yeah, it's actually, I think, the better of his books. And it's just a fascinating book that teaches those strategies. And so in my book, I bring up either overt, I can't remember if I overtly referenced Charles Haanel or not, but that work really influenced me. And the process of visualization is essential for people to make lasting and long-term success. And so in my book, like I said, it's an airplane book. You can get on an airplane in Dallas, and by the time you get to Los Angeles 3.5 hours later, you actually read the whole book. But what happens when you step off the plane? You step off the plane and into a new life where we can start by dehypnotizing ourselves and end by creating a new reality with what we have learned to visualize.
That's perfect. That's a great way to end this show is just knowing that, this book, it's a 5x8 book, and it's only
$8.59.
Yeah. It'll change your life. If you learn this, you learn the methods in here, even one method, it'll change your life.
Well, that's why I wrote the 7 most effective methods. I figure if people applied one of them, it would change their life.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a big fan of your work and your books, and so I just want to ask if you have any other final words of wisdom or tips or advice, other than going to Amazon and grabbing a copy of this book, which is, again, the 7 most effective methods of self-hypnosis. It's all 5-star rated, and it's getting amazing reviews, and people are really, I've really enjoyed the book. But what else, what else would you like to close this out with?
Well, I just would like to close by wishing everybody a happy day.
A happy day.
Happy day. Absolutely. I'm about to go have a happy day and go to my travel club. I love to travel. It expands my world. And so I'm part of a travel club here in Las Vegas. So I'm going to make it a great day. And I think we all have the ability, no matter how difficult life is today or has been in the past, to be a lot like that black cat that came out from behind your couch just now.
Oh,
and to relax into the moment and enjoy the, so my closing thought isn't, go buy something from me. I hope you do buy the book and you enjoy it. But my number one hope is that you really just have a great day. You have the ability to create the day you're going to have. So I'm going to go create an awesome day. And I hope that you do, Victoria, and all your listeners do as well.
Absolutely. What a lovely thought. And I wish you a wonderful day as well. And my listeners can go and check out your Facebook page at facebook.com/hypnosis gurus, or they can also go to join your hypnosis, NLP, and coaching Facebook group, which is icbchgroup.com. And they can also check out your book and your many books on Amazon. Also, finally, they can visit you at richardnongard.com. That's
actually, the best site is subliminalscience.com.
Now it's Subliminal Science.
It's pretty hard to not find me, though.
Yeah. So. Subliminal Science. Yes. So there's just a wealth of information and courses and all kinds of things that you can do, because Richard is a busy bee, constantly creating amazing, valuable insights and tools for hypnotists as well as people who just want to improve their life using the power of self-hypnosis. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Victoria.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. And once again, be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast if not already. We can be found as Hip Talk on all our social media accounts. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course at hiptalk.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast, and you'll be instantly notified the moment the next podcast becomes available. Also, please be sure to leave a rating and a review to tell us how you're enjoying these episodes, and that way you're making a contribution toward others getting to share in this valuable information. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast, brought to you by HipTalk.com, Personal Growth Club, and HypnoCloud apps available at iTunes.